All right, and we are back for the episode 2 of our conversation with Rob Harles, Global Lead for Modern and Emerging Channels for Accenture Interactive. Welcome to the Unified CXM Experience. And I am Grad Kahn, CXO, or Chief Experience Officer at Sprinklr, a New York Stock Exchange listed company, ticker symbol CXM. And I am going to be moving on to the conversation with Rob now. Enjoy this episode. There was a time when I think people were trying to stay connected, but as we moved, like Bill Birnbach ushered in a creative revolution, and much of his work I think is incredible. But I think he was misinterpreted by many people that followed him, and we entered an era of very anonymous advertising that was very just image focused. And there's a really great book by Julie Louis Watkins called The World's Greatest Advertisements. It's like 1858 to or 1878 to 1952 or something like that. So the range of the ads. And what is interesting when you read this book, and they're all print ads. What's interesting when you read this book is that in the early mid 1950s, when this book was published, these were seen as the 100 greatest ads. That's what it was. The 100 greatest ads that had ever been written. And when you look at them, a few are a bit like very modern in terms of very image focused, but most are very heavy in copy, like very heavy in copy. And there was the theory back then, which I still believe in, that while not everybody reads long copy, your prospects will. So write long copy because you have a headline and have a subhead, but then have the long copy because the people who really are your prospects will actually read all of it. Maybe most people won't, but the prospects will, and that's what's important. And when you read these ads, what's so striking is how personal they are. In some cases, almost uncomfortably personal. And the copywriters are trying really hard to get in the head of their prospects and trying to get in the head of the buyer, trying to walk a mile in their shoes. And it's an art that has been lost. And so we went to sort of very, very mass, very anonymous. And I think the core thing of it is a very anonymous advertising. And we've actually got wouldn't be a bad idea for all of us to read a few of the ads from the 1920s and 30s and recall how they were talking to prospects at the time, and then try to bring, the language has changed a bit, right? The idioms have changed, and it's a little bit different in terms of tonality, but there's still the basic idea of trying to connect with your needs and wants and desires is there. And it's a book that not many people read anymore. It's kind of hard to find, but it is something that would be great to be part of everyone's education.
No, absolutely. I mean, that's why I keep saying things have come full circle, which is we've spent a long time apart from one another without really putting ourselves in the shoes, not being empathetic enough for our customers. But now, we're not going to have a choice. That's the double-edged sword of where we live right now in the 21st century, which is because we have all these capabilities, technologies, and they're seemingly growing exponentially by the day, not by the month or year. This is a different Moore's law, right? Every day there are more people, having access to information that hitherto you might have wanted to control. Or, in the past, and you talked about this, which is at the very least, you want to control your brand message, your brand image. Well, you have no control in this day and age, right? It's whatever your customers and even your detractors tell you your brand is and how you react, more than what you tell people you stand for. And if you tell people you stand for something, that's not good enough on its own anymore. The thirst for transparency and authenticity requires you to put your money where your mouth is. So if you say you support diversity, you better well show what you're doing for diversity. If you say you're into sustainability, it's not good enough to say, well, we throw away the paper cups and we recycle the plastic ones at our offices. It's like, no, what are you doing? Dollars and cents, pounds and pence. And that's where we're at. And I feel like we're not prepared. that's my. I don't know if you feel that way.
Well, you're right. Actually, that's exactly it. There's this. I think what people are forgetting is that their brand is no longer under their control. You can say my brand is blue, but if everybody else says that the brand is red. And, I'm going to take the word of everybody else over your word of you. And it's this idea that people are sharing, and in many cases, the brand has become its experience that it lands. And so we'll kind of bring this full circle back to customer experience, because the experience that you land, from the way you do customer support and customer care to the way it feels when you're buying it, et cetera, that sort of full circle makes your brand whatever color it should be. And you can yell your brand is blue all day long, but if you're delivering a red experience, your brand is red. And then maybe that's a good thing, maybe it's a bad thing. I'm not trying to be judgmental on the colors, but it is what it is. And I think this is a very hard thing for a lot of companies to wrap their mind around, because they've got vision statements and they've got brand creative strategies and all this kind of stuff that they've invested all this time and energy into. But meanwhile, everyone's saying something else. At Sprinkler, we do a lot of listening for a lot of the world's biggest brands. I don't know if you know this or not, but we're up to 91 of the world's top 100 brands are now Sprinkler customers. Isn't that awesome?
That is awesome.
91.
That's
Although
awesome.
I told my dad the other day, and he said, "What's with the missing 9?" And I'm like,
what did you do wrong?
Thanks, Dad. Appreciate that. We'll get to 98, and he'll be like, "So what's wrong? Like, you can't get the last 2? You're not trying hard enough? What's going on? Come back to me when you're 100. Call me when you're 101." Anyway, oh my God. Anyway, so but I think that what we see across all these brands is that they've got all this stuff that they say about themselves, and then we do a sentiment study of what people say about them, and it's in some cases completely different. And they're like, "Well, that's not what we're all about." And I'm like, "Yeah, it is. I mean, you may not want it to be, but that's what you're all about, because that's what people are saying about you." And the only way to change that is to change the way you're operating with people and the way you're interacting with people, if you want to. And that to me has been, I think that is the exciting thing about modern channels in the world we live in today, is that for a long time, I think that companies and brands have been able to pretend that they are a certain thing, right? They've been able to pretend that they're this, they're pretend that they're that. You can't really hide from that anymore, because the conversations are exposed now. And if people think you're red, then people think you're red. You can yell that you're blue all day long and it won't make a lick of difference. And that to me is the very exciting thing about the times we're in, because now we have truth. And when you have truth and we can match perception to reality, often real breakthroughs happen, because people are no longer hiding behind a false reality. They actually start to kind of embrace the reality that's true, and then actually try to do something that's more compelling and more significant. If I really want to change my brand, I really want to change my experience, I'm going to have to actually change the experience. And I would say that generally most people are excited and waiting for it. It's not like a big, mea culpa. You just start doing it better. Just start doing it differently. People will flock to you and they'll love you for it.
Yeah, I actually had something I wanted to run by you too, and I don't have hard and fast stats for it, but I'm thinking about doing it. Which is, I think there's a resistance, there's a fear of the risk you take on when you get closer to the customer. I don't know how to put my finger on it. But
okay. So I'm with you. Keep going.
Even if you're in modern channels, let's say you've made your career in social media or whatever. Number one, I feel like intuitively, I don't think those groups that have made their careers in social media have been integrated sufficiently within the organization to make
100% agree.
Needful difference with all this information. It's the I Love Lucy thing with the chocolates. I've got all this stuff, but nobody actually looks at it. And but
by the way, I'm going to use that I Love Lucy clip. I know exactly what you're talking about. I'm going to use that in my live presentations. I almost had my first live show in September. They just canceled it and made it virtual only. But they're coming. I can tell people are jonesing to get out there in person again. And so I'm kind of getting some new videos and new decks ready. I'm kind of getting myself ready for the tours again. But that Lucy video, great idea. Is this what your data management system feels like? Brilliant. It's like brilliant.
Yeah, no, I'll tell tales on myself, which is, I think I was about as early as there could be in social media when it started up, and I didn't really know what I was doing, and I was thinking about all this stuff. But what made pulled me towards it was this thought that, for the first time, you're going to do something. You're going to do God's work. Right? You are going to do things to break the mold, and you're going to revolutionize how people interact, and you're going to make companies more responsive and honest and transparent. And you're going to, for the first time, you probably get rid of market research, and this is going to be live. Instead of a snapshot in time, it'll be a through the windscreen video, all that good stuff. But I feel like the folks that started with that camaraderie of, this our summer of love 15 years ago, we've kind of gone the other way. And the only evidence I feel I increasingly see for that is that there is a tendency to invest in things that pull you further from direct connection to the customer and more towards broadcast media. It's so much easier to spend 10 to $1 on paid media because I can point to it and say, okay, I reached this audience and here's the level of engagement and here's my sentiment. Versus I set up a community, I listened for a while, I interacted with these folks, I learned these 5 things that are really important, and I didn't make money off of it, but just 3 to 5 things could transform our company. And I say that because I often go into a company and say, if you have a litmus test about how connected you are to your customer, answer this question. Take a piece of paper and a pencil, no technology here needed. Write down 3 things, top of mind, that you know about your most valuable customer, and here's the kicker, that your competitors do not know. I guarantee you, people might get 1, but very few, if any, will get 3. And that's where I think the missing is, because we spend all our time on kind of automating our marketing rather than really listening, engaging, and communicating, like building community, authentic community with our most valuable customers and the people that we want as our prospects.
Well, it's almost like there's this kind of bizarre obsession with scale. It's got to scale, it's got to scale, it's got to scale, to the point where people never get to the point of understanding the impact. Like, I think if you can get the impact to happen and see the results, then work on scale. But often people put scale first, or they use scale almost as a way of shutting it down. And I think you're right. I think it's almost like this, the way you framed it was interesting, a fear of engaging directly with customers. It's a very, very interesting way of putting it.
That epiphany I had around the tools thing. This, I was doing this community before Facebook was even really getting involved in commerce and commercial things. And I was literally asking people and sort of interviewing them and using the forum to ask questions and send out surveys every other day. And this one guy wrote back, it's great that you're reaching out to us and taking the time to really get to know us, quotation marks, valuable customers, loyal customers. But he went on to say, but as a former loyal customer, I'm never buying anything from you again. And he just left it at that. And I was actually afraid. I don't think I said that to you when I told you that story first. I think I was afraid to respond because I didn't know what he was going to say. I thought he was going to say how terrible we were, which he was going to say, how terrible we were, and maybe even how terrible I am for even being naive enough to ask him the question when clearly, as a representative of the brand, we blew it. But I asked that simple question. Well, what went wrong? You were a formerly great customer. You're in this group because we knew you bought a lot, or at least I knew you bought a lot from us. And he wrote back, that weekend. Here's what happened. You stand by your products for life. Great. I buy thousands every year because I'm an avid DIYer. But I bought this one that was obviously not your brand, but you bought it at your store. And it broke after the warranty was up after 1 year. And I know I wasn't expecting to get a new one, but I did go back to the store going, hey, what's up? What's up with this? Not thinking that we're going to replace this for them, but I think he was thinking as a valuable customer, we would know who he was and say, you're a valuable customer. Let's see what I can do. But I can't even promise anything, but let's see what I can do. And he said after remonstrating a few times, being told just go buy a new one and hit the road, as though we were a deadbeat or something. He said, well, clearly you don't know who I am. Clearly you don't care. so I'm not going to buy anything from you again. And he took his, his store card out of his wallet and stopped buying across the board, not just this. And so I said, I don't know if I can do anything, but I signed up to see if I could do something. Like I did the thing that it was already too late to do, probably. And I reached out to a colleague at a personal level and said, this sounds wrong. Like, what's going on here? And left it at that. And, that Monday, I should have looked back on Sunday because he had written back, War and Peace on this forum. We didn't limit it to 140 characters. And he put, exclamation points and bullets and everything. And he said, hey, I just want to tell you three things. One, I was just blowing off steam. I really didn't expect you to, have to do something or anything. I wasn't going to buy anything from you, and you couldn't change my mind about it. But, thanks for listening. Two, you went a bit further than listening, and you thought you could actually fix this problem. And I just told you, and I'm thinking like an idiot. He thinks I'm an idiot. That you're naive. You're not going to get me to change the way I think about this brand. And then he wrote at the bottom, number 3, I just want to let you know your colleague, whatever you did, your colleague was fantastic. She called me up on Saturday. She apologized profusely for the story that I went through and how I was treated. And in fact, he said that apology was worth its weight in gold because my wife doesn't apologize to me like that when we get an argument. He was like, this really touched me.
That's either very sad or I don't know. There's a mixed blessing in that particular comment.
Well, I think my colleague
let's
was
not
very
go
good.
there.
And he said she gave me a gift card for $49, whatever this thing was. But I didn't even need that. What I needed was to know that I mattered, right? So he said he wrote it.
He might need some more time with his wife as well.
Yeah, and might need some time. I think that's the communication.
If a $49 gift certificate is like way better than what his wife, I think maybe there's some other problems there. Maybe that's why he was blowing some steam off. Maybe you walked into a completely different issue. Maybe it's the whole domestic issue here. You have no idea. Well, all kidding aside, sometimes that is part of it. People have a bad day, and then just to top it off, you couldn't even get my damn bagel right. Like that's sort of like that. Just all it takes sometimes for someone just to completely lose their mind. But it's not the 50 things that came before. It's like now you don't know how to toast a bagel. All right, this is it. I'm going downtown.
But remember at the end of this, and I have no way of checking that he actually did it, but he said, today I rummaged around in my desk drawer for that card I kind of tossed away. And I put it back in my wallet. And I'm like, well, I have no quantitative way of knowing if this guy's going to actually start buying from us. But he took the time to tell me that this changed him somehow. And I thought, well, why did we wait this long to make that happen? It's a lot easier to do it earlier on rather than go through this thing. It's not scalable. So I think that your point is spot on, which is sometimes again we're afraid to get close to the customer, and that is the key. However we do it, whether we do it through automation or we do it digital kisses on the cheek, making it feel like you got that email from and the video from the pet, but maybe they do that for everybody, and that's fantastic. But for you, it meant a lot. And whatever it is, that's what we should be doing. And the other fear is that fear has driven us into compartments, and those compartments don't interact. And I rail against this now. Like everybody, that person who just manufactured that thing is a salesperson, a marketer. And they're a service person. They're the face of the company. Whoever touched the customer last, that's the impression they're stuck with. That's what they are. So if you haven't empowered your people to feel like that, to make a human connection, to do what's right, to be honest, to be transparent, to be therapeutic. If you're like, yeah, you had a bad day. Remember you were talking about the bad flight you had, and it would be nice if someone at the check-in desk at the hotel already knew that and kind of did a couple kisses on the cheek that made you feel better about.
It wouldn't be much. Cold beer do trick most of the time. This is recognition. So what you're saying in some ways, it's instead of the new statement is instead of Ich bin Berliner, it's Ich bin Marketer. We're all marketers now, right? Is that the is that where we are? I like it. That's awesome. Well, people have always thought they were marketers. Like, it's the one profession that everyone thinks that they can do. So it's good to see that people actually have to have the responsibility as well now.
Well, and define it. What is it that they do now? Because I think it's different than it was 50, 100 years ago, right? It has to be different.
Well, I think we're all customer facing, and in a customer facing role, your job is to make sure the customer is happier after engaging with you. And if you have a unified CXM platform that pulls that together, and you can see all the things you've done to the customer, it makes it a lot easier to know what that impact on the customer has been. So, well, Robert, a little over time, but I got to tell you, this has been an awesome discussion. I'd love to do this again, maybe in the fall when I'm about to go on a bit of a Maine vacation, and then of course we've got the end of the summer and stuff. But maybe we can pick this up again in the fall, and sort of I'll kind of get an update from you on what you're doing and some of the things you're connecting with, and hopefully I'll have another great pedestal source like story that I can share with you, and we'll sort of jam on that again. Is there anything else you want to just kind of end with, or any kind of last thought you want to leave the audience with?
I still remember that you admonished me on my last conversation about
admonished.
Yeah,
wow.
Yes, about doing things in pieces, like just quick wins versus.
Yeah. I did admonish you. Actually, you're right.
Yeah, you did. And it stuck with me, so it'll always stick with me as a scar that I'll need to. But
ouch.
But I think you're right. I think I kind of leave it with this, which is my point was. Whatever you're going to do something. Don't keep doing the exact same thing over and over. That's the first, that's the definition of insanity, which is doing the same thing, expecting a different answer, different outcome. But even if you do a little thing, do it. But my thing is, if you're going to scale. If you're the Nike verse is right. Just do it. Do something different, and maybe make the pact every day that you're going to do one thing differently as a marketer, as a service person, salesperson. That you did.
And be bold.
Be real bold, and don't be
bold. Like, don't be afraid. Absolutely. I totally agree with you. Be bold. Like, get out there. Because, if you do something bold and it works, the world's your oyster. If you do something bold and it doesn't work, well, you did something bold and you tried. If you do something timid and it works, nothing happens. You do something timid and it doesn't work, you're finished.
I'll leave you with one other last thing, which was when I joined Accenture Interactive, I asked I was at this sort of getaway with a bunch of other managing directors, and I asked, and we were just shooting the breeze in the evening, and I said, it's one of those silly questions you ask. It's like, how do you be successful here? And he said, sometimes. And this guy was Russian. I can't do his accent very well. It's like, sometimes.
Okay. I'll imagine a Russian accent.
Far better to fail big than to succeed small. And I'm like, that's stuck.
Yes. Oh, wow. Far better to fail big than succeed small. That is killer. That's what I'm talking about. See? Damn, I love the Russians. They know how to make shit happen, man. Okay, that is a great way to end. That is a great way to end. Better to fail big than succeed small. Oh, yeah, no. Because fail big's always a good story. Like, it's always a good story.
Blew up, but hey, I tried something nobody else did, and it was a grand vision. But if you just try to succeed small, no one will ever notice.
I have proudly failed big on many occasions, so I am a big subscriber to that. Okay, that is awesome. Some may argue failed too big, but anyway, that's okay. I'll save that for another day. Rob, this has been amazing. Have a great weekend and have a great summer, and I'll see you in the fall. If we can pick this up again, I'd be delighted to keep the conversation going. All right, well, for the Unified CXM Experience, I'm Brad Kahn, CXO at Sprinkler, and today I had Rob Harles as my guest from Accenture, and we had a really great discussion about all things CXM. And if you're interested in buying a pedestal, I would suggest you use Pedestal Source. And I'm not being paid for this. And that's it for today. Thank you very much, and I'll see you next time.